This is the anatomy and physiology presentation of nutrition and metabolism. So nutrition is the study of nutrients and how the body uses them. And we're going to focus a lot on how the body uses them and why the body needs those particular nutrients. So nutrients can be chemicals from the environment that organisms need for survival. It's used to supply energy to fuel metabolic processes and for building blocks for producing the molecules the body needs. There's two major nutrient classes, the macronutrients and the micronutrients. The macronutrients are required in large quantities, such as carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and they provide energy. The micronutrients, as the name implies, is required in small amounts, such as vitamins and minerals. They help extract the energy from the macronutrients. Without them, though, we may not be able to get the energy we need from those larger molecules. Essential nutrients are nutrients the body cannot synthesize or cannot synthesize in sufficient quantity. These we have to get from our diet. And you've heard the term calorie used before. In chemical terms, the unit of heat used to express the amount of energy in foods. All right, so first of all, the carbohydrates. As you know from Bio 168, these are organic compounds like sugars and starches. Energy held in their chemical bonds is used to power cellular processes. Carbohydrate sources include polysaccharides, which are complex carbohydrates such as starch from plant foods and glycogen from meats, and disaccharides, which are double sugars, like milk sugar, cane sugar, beet sugar, molasses, and monosaccharides, which are single sugars that come from honey and fruits. Digestion breaks the complex carbohydrates into monosaccharides that are small enough to be absorbed. Cellulose is a complex carbohydrate abundant in our food. It's not digested, but provides fiber, which you need to help materials move through your digestive system. Okay, as far as carbohydrate use, different monosaccharides are absorbed from the digestive tract, like fructose, galactose, and glucose. And since glucose is the most common cellular fuel oxidized in glycolysis, the other monosaccharides are converted into glucose by enzymes in the liver. Glucose is broken down into carbon dioxide, water, and energy when needed. Excess glucose is converted into glycogen by glycogenesis, glycogenesis, and stored in liver and muscle cells. When glucose is needed for energy, glycogen is broken down into glucose by the process of glycogenolysis. After storing a certain amount of glycogen, excess glucose is converted into fats by lipogenesis and stored in adipose tissue. Many cells can break down fatty acids for energy, but some require glucose. Gluconeogenesis is the conversion of non-carbohydrates like amino acids and glycerol to glucose for cells that require glucose as energy storage. Okay, this graphic shows the conversion of fructose and galactose, both ultimately to glucose. It doesn't show all the steps, but it does show the rearrangement of the molecules. Okay, figure 18.2 shows you carbohydrate digestion and use. So monosaccharides are used for energy, or they're stored as glycogen or fat, as we mentioned. And you see what each of these carbohydrates can be converted to first, which are monosaccharides, and then how we can use those monosaccharides and convert them to these other molecules, depending on why we need them or if we need them. Okay, carbohydrates are a primary source of fuel for your cellular processes. Need for carbohydrates varies with individual energy requirements. Minimal requirements for carbohydrates in the human diet is unknown, but an intake of at least 125 to 175 grams per day is likely necessary. Average diet in the United States includes 200 to 300 grams per day. All right, lipids. These are organic compounds that include fats, oils, phospholipids, and cholesterol. They supply energy for cellular processes. They serve as building blocks for structures such as cell membranes. The triglycerides in particular are composed of glycerol and 3 fatty acids, and it's the most common dietary lipid. It's also just called fats. Triglycerides are found in plant-based and animal-based foods. So saturated fats are mainly in foods of animal origin, like meat, eggs, milk, and lard. Also in palm and coconut oils. So saturated fats have no double bonds between the carbon atoms and fatty acids. They're all single bonds. These are associated with increased risk of cardiovascular disease. Unsaturated fats are found in seeds, nuts, and plant oils. They contain 1 or more double bonds between carbon atoms. The monounsaturated fats are the healthiest of the fats. Cholesterol is abundant in liver and egg yolk. Some is in whole milk, butter, cheese, and meats. It is not found in foods of plant origin. Okay, for lipid use. Lipids in foods include phospholipids, cholesterol, and most commonly fats and triglycerides. Functions of lipids include mainly supply energy. They contain more than twice as much chemical energy per gram as carbohydrates or proteins. Triglycerides are broken down to glycerol and fatty acids in order to release energy. And glycerol and fatty acids can be used to synthesize storage fats in adipose tissue. Excess glucose or amino acids can also be converted into fat molecules. Figure 18.3 shows you the fat pathways. So triglyceride catabolism into glycerol and fatty acids is shown here. And both of these can provide energy. And we can actually convert some of these materials to acetyl coenzyme A so that they can enter the citric acid cycle pretty directly, pretty much bypassing the anaerobic parts like glycolysis. Livers can convert fatty acids from one form to another. The liver cannot synthesize certain fatty acids though, and these are called essential fatty acids. These must be obtained from the diet. Lipids can combine with proteins to form lipoproteins. They're classified on the basis of density. As proportion of lipids decreases, the density increases. And it's used in lipid transport to specific target cells. VLDLs, or very low density lipoproteins, have high triglyceride content. LDLs, or low density lipoproteins, have high cholesterol content. And HDLs, or high density lipoproteins, have high protein content. The liver controls the cholesterol levels. It's produced by the liver and released into the blood. It can be used to make bile salts, and it's excreted in bile. Adipose tissue will store and release triglycerides as needed. This figure shows you fatty acid usage by the liver. And as you can see, again, the liver can convert fatty acids and glycerol to different compounds, depending on what you need. The lipid content of human diets does vary. The American Heart Association advises that the diet not exceed 30% of the total daily calories from fat. Monosaturated fats, like in avocados and olives, are healthier than saturated fats, as we see in butter and lard. People have different lipid requirements, and it's based on the stage of life and activity level. Fat intake must be sufficient to support absorption of fat-soluble vitamins. All right, proteins. These consist of chains of amino acids. They have many functions, including building new proteins, so structural proteins, enzymes, hormones, antibodies, clotting factors, and other plasma proteins. But proteins also supply energy. They can first be broken down into amino acids. Amino groups, or the NH2 groups, are removed through deamination. They react to form urea, which is excreted in urine. Deaminated portions of amino acids are decomposed in various pathways that produce ATP, such as the citric acid cycle. Excess amino acids can also be converted into glucose or fats. This graphic shows protein usage in the body and how proteins are broken down to amino acids, and then amino acids can be used to produce or create other types of molecules or be used ultimately to provide energy. Figure 18.6 shows you the protein pathways. This shows you catabolism, which means breakdown into amino acids, and the use of deamination that produces urea. Again, we can convert those amino acids to certain molecules that can then go directly to acetyl coenzyme A and into the citric acid cycle for energy. Foods that contain proteins include meats, fish, poultry, cheese, nuts, milk, and eggs. These are all high in protein. Legumes like beans and peas contain less protein. The body needs 20 types of amino acids to synthesize proteins. 12 can be synthesized by the body. These are called non-essential amino acids. 8 cannot be synthesized by the body, and these are called essential amino acids. All 20 amino acids must be present at the same time in order for protein synthesis to occur. If even one amino acid is missing, any proteins that require that amino acid cannot be produced. Essential amino acids are not stored in the body. Complete proteins are high-quality proteins. They contain adequate amounts of the essential amino acids for good health, and these are found in meat, milk, and eggs. Incomplete proteins, or low-quality proteins, do not contain adequate amounts of essential amino acids and are found in many plant proteins. Certain combinations of plant proteins, like beans and rice, provide an adequate diversity of the dietary amino acids. This table shows you the amino acids that are found in foods. And as it says, 8 essential amino acids cannot be synthesized by the human cells and have to be provided in the diet. 2 additional amino acids are essential in growing children. All right, let's talk about nitrogen balance. In healthy adults, protein is continuously built up and broken down. Overall, gain should equal overall loss, resulting in a state of dynamic equilibrium. Since proteins contain a high percentage of nitrogen, dynamic equilibrium leads to a state of nitrogen balance, in which the amount of nitrogen taken in equals the amount excreted. Negative nitrogen balance develops from starvation, when excretion exceeds dietary intake. Positive nitrogen balance develops in growing children and pregnant women or an athlete in training. So protein being built into new tissue exceeds the energy usage and excretion in this case. Your protein requirements. So besides supplying essential amino acids, proteins provide nitrogen and other elements for producing non-essential amino acids and certain non-protein nitrogenous substances. Dietary protein intake varies according to the body size and metabolic rate and nitrogen balance conditions. Typically, daily protein intake is recommended to be 10% of a person's diet. So 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight or 0.4 grams per pound of body weight. Most people should consume 60 to 150 grams a day, or 2 to 5 ounces per day. Deficiency of protein leads to tissue wasting and a decline in plasma proteins, which results in decreased plasma osmotic pressure and nutritional edema. This table gives you a breakdown of the major nutrient macromolecules, their sources, their RDA recommendations, the calories per gram, their uses, conditions associated with excesses and deficiencies. Energy expenditures. So carbohydrates, fats, and proteins supply energy for all metabolic processes. Deficiencies can cause consumption of structural molecules, such as muscle proteins, leading to death. Excesses can lead to obesity, which is damaging to your health. The energy value of foods we usually express as calories, which is the amount of potential energy a food contains. Calories are units of heat. Caloric content of foods can be measured by a Baum calorimeter. Caloric content of various types of nutrients include carbohydrates at 4.1 calories per gram, proteins at 4.1 calories per gram, and lipids at 9.5 calories per gram. This figure shows you what a Baum calorimeter looks like. And what we do is we heat up a material and we watch to see at what point it actually burns or oxidizes, and the amount of energy given off. Okay, basal metabolic rate, or BMR. This is a rate at which body expends energy under basal conditions, awake and at rest, after overnight fasting, in comfortable environments. It mainly reflects energy needed to support the activities of the organs. BMR varies with gender, body size, body temperature, thyroid, hormone activity. Maintaining BMR requires body's greatest energy expenditure. Energy is needed in the body to maintain BMR, to support muscular activity, to maintain body temperature, and for growth in children and pregnant women. This table shows you calories used during various activities. Energy balance. This exists when caloric intake from food equals caloric output from BMR and muscular activities. Body weight remains constant. In positive energy balance, caloric intake exceeds output. Tissues store excess nutrients and leads to weight gain. Negative energy balance is when caloric expenditure exceeds intake. Tissues are broken down for energy, and this leads to weight loss. Okay, desirable weight. Most common nutritional disorders involve caloric imbalances. A desirable weight is difficult to determine. Body mass index is used today to assess weight, taking height into consideration. A person is classified with BMI has either underweight, normal weight, overweight, or obese. Overweight is defined as exceeding desirable weight by 10 to 20%, or a BMI of 25 and 30. Obesity is defined as exceeding desirable weight by greater than 20%, or with a BMI over 30. Obesity is more correctly defined as excess adipose tissue. This figure shows you body mass index and how to determine it based on your height in feet and inches. And it tells you at what level is considered healthy weight and overweight and obese based on your height and your weight. Okay, clinical applications, obesity. Almost 1/3 of adults in the United States are obese, 20% above desirable weight, having extra pounds of fat in the body. Obesity increases risk for type 2 diabetes, digestive disorders, heart disease, kidney failure, hypertension, stroke, and certain cancers. Both heredity and environment can contribute to obesity. Certain genes are involved with the control of hunger and satiety by the hypothalamus. Treatments include diet and exercise. So losing 1 pound requires burning of 3,500 calories. Drug therapy. This can be effective, but many drugs are harmful. And then surgery. There's 3 types of bariatric surgery that are used to treat obesity. Okay, appetite control. Appetite's a drive that compels us to seek food. The control center for this is located in the hypothalamus. It's under control of several hormones and neurotransmitters. Insulin. This is a hormone secreted by the pancreas after eating. It stimulates adipocytes to take up glucose and store fat. and other cells to take up glucose and store glycogen. Leptin, this is a hormone secreted by adipocytes while eating. It acts on the hypothalamus to suppress the appetite by inhibiting the release of neuropeptide Y. Neuropeptide Y is a neurotransmitter secreted by the hypothalamus in response to the hormone ghrelin. It stimulates appetite. Ghrelin is a hormone secreted by the stomach. It enhances the appetite by causing secretion of neuropeptide Y. This table shows you the substances that control appetite, where they're secreted and their functions. This figure shows you appetite control by leptin and ghrelin. So this is a negative feedback loop. It shows what happens when you have excessive appetite and when you have insufficient appetite, based on those chemicals we just talked about. Vitamins. So vitamins are organic compounds that are required in small amounts for normal metabolic processes. Essential nutrients are those that cannot be synthesized by the body cells in adequate amounts. And vitamins are classified on the basis of solubility. Fat-soluble vitamins are A, D, E, and K. Water-soluble vitamins are the B vitamins and vitamin C. Okay, some fallacies. The more vitamins, the better. Well, really, too much of a water-soluble vitamin results in excretion of the vitamin through urination, but too much of a fat-soluble vitamin, this can harm your health because you have a hard time getting rid of these. Another fallacy, a varied diet provides all needed vitamins. Well, many people do benefit from vitamin supplements, particularly pregnant and breastfeeding women. And another fallacy, vitamins provide energy. Well, vitamins do not directly supply energy. They do aid in the release of energy from carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. The fat-soluble vitamins dissolve in fats. It's influenced by the same factors that affect lipid absorption. Bile salts promote fat-soluble vitamin absorption. They're stored in various tissues, so excess intake leads to overdoses, which can be harmful to your health. Okay, they are resistant to heat. They're not often destroyed by cooking and or food processing. And these include A, D, E, and K. This table shows you the fat-soluble vitamins, their characteristics, their functions, their sources and RDA for the adults, and conditions associated with excess and deficiencies of these particular vitamins. And just to go over these functions. So vitamin A, it's an antioxidant necessary for synthesis of visual pigments, mucoproteins, mucopolysaccharides, for normal development of bones and teeth, and for maintenance of epithelial cells. Vitamin D promotes absorption of calcium and phosphorus and promotes development of teeth and bones. Vitamin E, this is an antioxidant. It prevents oxidation of vitamin A and polyunsaturated fatty acids and may help maintain stability of the cell membranes. And vitamin K is required for synthesis of prothrombin, which functions in blood clotting. Okay, the water-soluble vitamins, B vitamins and vitamin C. Cooking and food processing does destroy some of these. B vitamins are essential for normal cellular metabolism. B vitamins are usually found in the same foods, so together they're known as the vitamin B complex. This table shows you the water-soluble vitamins along with characteristics, functions, sources, and conditions. So thiamine, or B1, this is part of a coenzyme required for oxidation of carbohydrates. Coenzymes are required for ribose synthesis. Okay, riboflavin, or riboflavin, vitamin B2, part of the enzymes and coenzymes such as FAD, which are required for oxidation of glucose and fatty acids and for cellular growth. Niacin, which is vitamin B3, also known as nicotinic acid, is part of coenzymes NAD and NADP, which are required for oxidation of glucose and synthesis of proteins, fats, and nucleic acids. Okay, pantothenic acid, or vitamin B5. This is part of a coenzyme A required for oxidation of carbohydrates and fats. And vitamin B6. It's a coenzyme required for synthesis of proteins and various amino acids, for conversion of tryptophan to niacin, for production of antibodies, and for nucleic acid synthesis. Biotin, or vitamin B7. This is a coenzyme required for metabolism of amino acids and fatty acids and for nucleic acid synthesis. Folacin, or vitamin B9, also called folic acid, is a coenzyme required for metabolism of certain amino acids and for DNA synthesis. It promotes production of normal red blood cells. Cyanocobalamin is vitamin B12. It's part of a coenzyme required for synthesis of nucleic acids and for metabolism of carbohydrates. It plays a role in myelin synthesis and is required for normal red blood cell production. And ascorbic acid, or vitamin C, required for collagen production, conversion of folacin to folinic acid, and metabolism of certain amino acids. It promotes absorption of iron and synthesis of hormones from cholesterol. Okay, we also need minerals in addition to vitamins. So minerals are inorganic elements required in metabolism, and they're usually extracted from the soil by plants. They're obtained from plant foods or animals that have eaten plants. Minerals make up about 4% of your body weight. They're most concentrated in the bones and teeth because of the calcium and phosphorus. Usually, they're incorporated into organic molecules such as iron and hemoglobin. Some exist as parts of inorganic compounds like calcium phosphate. Some are free ions in the blood like sodium and chloride ions. They compose parts of the structural materials of all cells. They have roles in muscle contraction, nerve impulse conduction, blood coagulation, pH regulation, and other activities. Homeostatic mechanisms that regulate the concentration of minerals in the body fluids. And mineral toxicity can result from ingestion of too much of a mineral or from overexposure to industrial pollutants, household chemicals, or certain drugs. The major minerals, or macrominerals, account for 0.05% or more of body weight. So calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, sodium, chlorine, and magnesium. Calcium and phosphorus account for nearly 75% of the mineral elements of the body by weight. Table 18.9 shows you the major minerals and functions and sources and conditions. Calcium is a structure of the bones and teeth. It's essential for the neurotransmitter release, muscle fiber contraction, the cardiac action potential, and blood coagulation. It activates certain enzymes. Phosphorus is a structure of bones and teeth. It's a component of nearly all metabolic reactions. It's in nucleic acids, many proteins, some enzymes, and some vitamins. In the cell membrane, ATP, and phosphates of body fluids also. Potassium helps maintain intracellular osmotic pressure, and it regulates pH. It's required for impulse conduction in neurons. Sulfur is an essential part of certain amino acids, thiamine, insulin, biotin, and mucopolysaccharides. Sodium helps maintain osmotic pressure of extracellular fluids. It regulates water movements, plays a role in impulse conduction in neurons. It regulates pH and transport of substances across cell membranes. Chlorine. This helps maintain osmotic pressure of extracellular fluids and regulates pH. It maintains electrolyte balance. It forms hydrochloric acid. It aids transport of carbon dioxide by red blood cells. And magnesium is required in metabolic reactions in mitochondria that produce ATP and plays a role in the breakdown of ATP to ADP. Trace elements are called microminerals. Essential minerals found in minute amounts. Each makes up less than 0.005% of body weight. The trace elements include iron, manganese, copper, iodine, cobalt, zinc, fluorine, selenium, and chromium. This table shows you the trace elements and function and sources and conditions. Iron is part of hemoglobin molecules. It assists in vitamin A synthesis It's incorporated into a number of enzymes. Manganese is part of the enzymes required for fatty acids and cholesterol synthesis, urea formation, and normal functioning of the nervous system. Copper is essential for hemoglobin synthesis, bone development, melanin production, and myelin formation. And iodine is an essential component for synthesis of thyroid hormones. Cobalt is a component of cyanocobalamin. It's required for synthesis of several enzymes. Zinc is a component of enzymes involved in digestion, respiration, bone metabolism, liver metabolism, and it's necessary for normal wound healing and maintaining integrity of the skin. Fluorine is a component of tooth enamel. Selenium is a component of certain enzymes. And chromium is essential for use of carbohydrates. All right, a clinical application about dietary supplements. Proceed with caution. Dietary supplements are not classified as either a food or a drug. They may contain ingredients that function like pharmaceuticals in the body. They may be toxic if taken in excess. Supplements are regulated by law and must contain a vitamin, mineral, herb, or botanical. It must be intended to supplement the diet. Product labels cannot state that a supplement diagnoses, prevents, treats, or cures any disease. They can only state facts that are supported by evidence, such as the fact that calcium decreases the risk of osteoporosis. Some supplements may have little value, such as those that supply chemicals that are produced in sufficient quantities in the body. Some can be dangerous because of their interaction with certain other drugs the person may be taking. The FDA does not require clinical trials to prove that supplements are safe and effective. This table shows you some health conditions associated with dietary supplements. Okay, healthy eating. An adequate diet provides sufficient energy and calories, essential fatty acids, essential amino acids, vitamins, and minerals to support optimal growth and to maintain and repair body tissues. Requirements vary with age, sex, growth rate, level of physical activity and stress, and genetic and environmental factors. If food supply is adequate, most healthy people obtain proper nourishment by eating a variety of foods and limiting the intake of fat. Dietary requirements such as recommended daily allowances or RDA are best to follow. Food pyramids can offer suggestions for following a healthy diet by organizing foods into suggested proportions. The USDA's MyPlate now replaces past food pyramids, and you can find this on the internet by simply Googling it. Nutritional information as well as ingredients are listed on most grocery items for retail sale. Okay, this shows you different types of vegetarian diets. You may have heard individuals referring to themselves as one of these. Okay, this shows you the MyPlate that's been developed by the USDA. So you can go into choosemyplate.gov, and this will give you a lot of information about what nutrients you need and what foods you get those from. Clinical application. So nutrition and the athlete. Athletes and sedentary people have different nutritional requirements. So for macronutrients, frequent strenuous activity can be supported by a diet consisting of 60% carbohydrates, 18% proteins, and 22% fat. Athletes should eat more carbohydrates from vegetables and grains and eat frequently. Athletes should eat 25% more protein than sedentary people. Athletes should also drink a lot more water to counteract the effects of sweating. If you're following a balanced diet, athletes should not need vitamin or mineral supplements. Creatine supplements do not seem to improve athletic performance, except maybe during peak exertion when natural creatine phosphate may become depleted. They seem to make muscle cells enlarge, but this is due to osmosis of water into the muscles, not an increase in size of the muscle cells. Malnutrition. This is poor nutrition that results from a lack of essential nutrients or inability to use them. Undernutrition is malnutrition resulting from deficiency of essential nutrients. Overnutrition is malnutrition resulting from excess of nutrient intake. Causes of malnutrition include lack of food availability, poor quality of food, overeating, taking too many supplements. Classification of malnutrition includes primary malnutrition and secondary. In primary malnutrition, malnutrition from diet alone occurs. Secondary malnutrition, you have an adequate diet, but the individual characteristics make the diet insufficient, such as a person with a deficiency of bile salts developing a deficiency of fat-soluble vitamins. A healthy human can survive 50 to 70 days without food. During starvation, the body will begin to digest itself. Symptoms include low blood pressure, slow pulse, chills, dry skin, hair loss, and poor immunity. Common nutritional or starvation disorders include marasmus, which is due to a lack of calories and protein. These people have little muscle mass. Kwashiorkor. This is protein starvation. It causes abdominal edema or ascites. Anorexia nervosa. This is an eating disorder or self-starvation. And bulimia. This is an eating disorder where the person binges and purges. Okay, for lifespan changes, dietary requirements remain about the same throughout life. BMR rises in early childhood and peaks in adolescence and declines in adulthood. A change in nutrition often reflects the effects of medical conditions and social and economic circumstances, like depression, tooth decay, periodontal disease, diabetes mellitus. Deficiency of vitamin A may take a long time to show up. Calcium deficiency may not show symptoms as bones lose mineral content. Vitamin D deficiency may develop in absence of sun exposure. Energy requirements do decline with age, and you can see the difference here as we go from 23 to 75 plus for females and males. As you see, males do require more calories per day, but that decreases with time as well. And that's the end of the chapter dealing with metabolism and nutrition.